We are on our first episode of Darker Than Darkness with Ben from Mother of Graves. I prepared a few questions for him, and we're at the dual show for the Immortal Bird album release and the Mother of Grave album release. Are you ready, Ben?
I guess so. Let's go.
All right. So, touring with Immortal Bird today, I was curious if this was just kind of something you guys had planned along the way, or if you guys kind of just met up today and decided that we both had an album release and decided it was convenient.
Yeah, so it had been planned for a little while. When we found out that they were planning their album release at the same time as us, Chris, who helps kind of get things booked for us, he kind of messaged with them, went a little bit of back and forth, and we're like, oh my gosh, we could do something in Indy, and we would headline that, and then we'd go up to Chicago the next week, you guys do your release and headline that. It worked out perfectly. And what was even better was that, I mean, Immortal Bird, they're freaking awesome, right? So it's not just like, oh, it was convenient for us to release at the same time, but also it's just going to be so much fun because there's so much fun to watch.
So when did Immortal Bird first pick up on your radar?
You know, I'll have to ask Chris about that one because now, I mean, we had known about them obviously because they had some previous releases or whatever, so we'd heard their stuff. But as far as like putting the show together and that, I couldn't give you a timeline. It's been a while now, honestly.
Great. I really did think that you and Immortal Bird had a really good chemistry back to back for the set list. I think it was great.
Great, awesome.
And real quick, like more opinion-based question, I was curious, like with the rise of social media and music streaming platforms, how has that changed like the game for you guys?
You know, it actually, you know, it's a little bit of a double-edged sword, right? Because it gives you exposure that you wouldn't have otherwise, right? But then on the other hand, you know, you can kind of be streamed by anyone, anywhere, and then, you know, you don't know if you're really going to gel with somebody, and so you might maybe not get the physical media to someone that you might get otherwise, but in the end, I mean, it's really good for us, honestly. We would not be where we are, I don't think, without social media. Chris does such a good job of keeping up with everyone who's part of the scene, who's interested in what we're doing, interacting, and just making sure that we're kind of out there and in the eye. And so it works out pretty well for us.
Do you think that social media has given people more of an option to kind of pick and choose like where they kind of fall in?
Exactly. Yeah, no, I would say that. I mean, you can now, because I'm old enough that you used to buy an album kind of either based on what your friends liked or what you heard about them, or even just because you like the album cover, right? Now you actually get to hear it. And so it really helps you decide, like, oh man, you know, I already love these guys before I've even seen them, before I've even heard them. Like, I heard them on social media, or I heard them streaming or whatever, and so I get to be part of that before I even have to put any kind of investment in it. It's nice.
Right on. I think that is a very, very optimistic outlook, and I think that there is a lot of like realism in that, and I think that does drive that home very well, especially to people my age who have grown up around social media and streaming platforms. It's very convenient, and I think it does help us draw here a little harder.
Absolutely.
And In Somber Dreams was released by Wise Blood Records. So with this new album, Periapt of Absence, it was on Profound Lore. How has that changed the sound for you guys, if at all?
Sound-wise, probably not at all, because we do all of our production in-house. We get the drums recorded professionally at a studio. All those tracks are then sent home with me. I record everyone else at my home studio. We do the production, and we send that off to Dan Swano for mastering. And when he brings it back to us after mastering, it's a beautiful thing. And so this time, I love the sound of the new album. I feel like it's the best sounding one. And I definitely am so happy that Profound Lore was supporting us through that process. But as far as, you know, a change of sound from one label to the next, it was more our own kind of evolution, I would say.
Okay, right on. So you all have a history of extreme metal. You and Chris were in Harakiri,
Yeah.
brutal death metal band, and I know Brandon has been in countless other bands.
Countless other bands, yeah.
Currently also drumming with Obscene and
Yep.
other pretty brutal death metal
That's
bands.
right.
So for this project, what brought on the doom aspect of it?
Yeah, so that I'm going to actually say goes back to Chris Morrison. Chris was in a band with a friend of his named Jeremy. They were in a band called Bullet Wolves. Jeremy, sadly passed away, and Chris, and he would tell you this, he was looking for a way to kind of process that grief, right? And what he found was that this kind of doomier, melancholic, sadder kind of vibe was a way for him just to kind of express that, to kind of work through it. So he came to me with the idea to try to do something that sounded like that, and we just started working together, and really it was only supposed to be a home studio project, to be honest. The two of us just kind of screwing around on the weekend, and it just turned into whatever it is now. But that's really where the doom aspect came from. And the thing was is that it gives us an opportunity to be melodic and emotional, and even gritty sometimes when the brutal death metal doesn't kind of give you that option, right? I mean, you could do it, but it would be a little bit weird. So,
yeah, I would agree. And I do think that for a lot of metalheads out here and a lot of pretty die-hard doom fans, I do think that the aspect of the music being a form of therapy speaks a lot to a lot of people. And it does carry a lot more weight than it would for a death metal band doing the tried and true like horror movie lyrics.
Sure, yeah.
So a couple more for you. So you guys currently have 9,000 monthly listeners on Spotify.
Wow, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, so you guys have definitely had a significant bump up from starting from 2019 and going onward. I remember seeing you guys at the first show when Shadows came out.
Yeah.
And I believe you guys had maybe 2,000, 3,000, which is impressive for the indie scene.
Yeah.
But at 9,000 and the crowd that you have brought in today, is that an added amount of pressure for you guys? And where do you see yourselves moving forward?
Sure, yeah. It's a great question. I mean, probably every person in the band could answer that question a little bit differently. I can answer for myself and say, yeah, it's added pressure. I mean, I still get nervous before shows. I still get a little bit, I was trying to say here, like, oh, if I miss a note, I get a little bit, but, and so I worry about not putting on our absolute best, 100%, perfect performance. I think some of the other guys are better at, like, cutting loose and having fun with it. And hopefully that comes through, that we're up there and having fun and trying to do our best. But the pressure's there. As far as, moving forward, I mean, we're just, honestly, we're so grateful for where we are now. None of us envisioned it getting to where it is even now. So it's really hard to even envision where it's supposed to go from here, because I don't think any of us imagined being this far. So I think it's just going to go where it goes. I wish I had a better answer for you.
Yeah, no, that
makes
perfect sense. And at Darker Than Darkness, being spearheaded by two people of the younger generation, we like to keep in mind that we try to keep the scene healthy. We try to keep an influx of people in. And I was wondering what advice you give to people our age who are thinking about starting a band.
Wow. Gosh. So, you know what? Number one, if you possibly can, start a band with people who are on the same page as you. Talent is secondary. Ideas are even secondary, okay? If you're going to be in a band and you thoroughly get along with the people in your band, if you're able to disagree, but you're able to disagree constructively and work through it and limit the drama, you will just, what you can create out of that is absolutely amazing. The ideas that spring from our band, because everyone is working toward a common goal, I mean, it's really more than I ever imagined it to be. And there's just, I'm very, very fortunate to be with the guys that I'm with in this band, because we're all basically on the same page. There's very little argument. There is opinion sometimes, and we're able to work through the opinions. And so, yeah, if you're going to be in a band, it's so much more about the quality of the people that you're with than how good they can shred. I'm just going to tell you.
I would completely agree. Being in two bands, I do know that, and I am the only, like, I'd say even alternative person at my high school, that it does become tricky, especially with like people being younger than me, or people being our age. People tend to butt heads, and I do think that being agreeable or having that like agree to disagree mentality is very healthy and gets you where you need to be going and achieving your goals. Thank you so much for being us for our very first episode. It was absolutely a pleasure. You guys killed it live. I'm going to play some clips from tonight's concert along with some clips from Immortal Bird as well, even though we didn't get to interview them, unfortunately.
All right.
Hope you have a good day.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.